Just a little warning, about 15 minutes in, we have a reference to Santa. So if you have little ears in the car, might want to keep that in mind.
But I teach that sales is actually something you do with another person. And when you can show up and have these with interactions, then you realize that it's really conversation.
Have you been thinking about doing a podcast, but you don't know what to do or how to start? Good news. I am offering my $600 course for free for a limited time. All you have to do is go to Interrupted Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy on Apple Podcast, give a 5-star rating, and write a review. Take a picture of it and email it to lawcoach@comcast.net. Thank you in advance. Nikki Rausch is the sales maven, and I just happened to take the course that she's offering you at the end of this podcast. If you have a business and you hate sales, this might help you reframe it as to more of an invitation and working with people rather than doing something to them. I love the way she approaches business and sales. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're struggling with sales, it might be more about your sales conversation. So I hope you'll hang out and join me and Nikki as we dive in deep to how to talk sales in an inviting way.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Laurie.
Nikki Rausch is the sales maven. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Nikki, we always start with what you do and what you love about it. And the first time, I don't know if it was the first time I met you, but the first time I was really aware of you was when you spoke at a networking event I went to. What was interesting to me as an entrepreneur, I wanted to do my thing. I didn't want to do sales. I didn't realize that if you are an entrepreneur, sales becomes your life. So I found it so valuable, all the things that you shared with us. So I'm so excited for you to share with us.
Well, thank you. So my company is Sales Maven. I'm a sales strategist, and I really primarily work with women business owners, and I teach them the strategy behind sales conversations, how to have effective conversations, how to build strong rapport, how to deliver your message in a way that is easy for the person that you're speaking with to want to take it in and engage with you. I have a signature framework. I call it the selling staircase. I wrote my 3rd book around it. And I really believe that anybody can learn how to sell. I really truly think it's a skill set that can be learned. And you're right. As an entrepreneur, you are really passionate about what you do and you put yourself out there, and sales is not a component of it. You find that you have a really expensive hobby and not a business, because in order for it to be a business, that means revenue has to be coming in. And so there's always going to be a sales component to it. I love working with entrepreneurs who are like, I never wanted to be in sales, Nikki. So how can you make it easy for me to do what I really love, what I'm really good at, what I'm really passionate about, but do it in a way that still is genuine to that individual entrepreneurs? I would say I don't teach people how to sell like me. I teach people how to be more strategic in their conversations so that it makes it easier to be in conversation, and it makes it easier to get to that place where you can exchange dollars for services.
I teach podcasting, and when I do my classes, this is what a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, I'm not worried about the money, but they all want to make money at it.
Yeah.
Almost everyone says, I hate sales. In my mind, I get it, but it's also like we have framed the word sales into this enemy. I found for me, I had to make friends with it. And that was part of the reason I went to this networking group is how do I make friends with the things that I won't say don't come natural, but that I don't recognize as actually almost more important than the thing I do.
I think there's a real misconception when it comes to the word sales and what does it mean to sell. There's this misconception that selling is something you do to another person. And if you show up from this place of like, I have to do something to another person, that feels kind of icky and gross and like manipulative. And that I think is what pushes most entrepreneurs away from it. But I teach that sales is actually something you do with another person. And when you can show up and have these with interactions, then you realize that it's really conversation. And I also believe that, but I teach that sales is actually something you do with another person. And when you can show up and have these with interactions, then you realize that it's really conversation.
I love that. That's what I have struggled with sometimes at networking events is we exchange information and often people are telling me things and I'm a great listener and I love to hear what people do. But then I leave going, I don't know if anybody really actually asked me what I did or what I needed.
From a networking standpoint in particular, there's a few things I think to give yourself like the power over networking that I think will support the person who, if you're like me, I'm an introvert. I'm kind of shy in a setting. Most people don't realize that because I'm great speaking in front of a group, but put me in the group and having to engage, I feel shy. But I also know that it's my job to take care of my business and it's my job to attract my ideal client. And also, one of the things that I have found to be really effective is to learn how to ask smart questions at networking because there's a lot of kind of standard questions that people ask, doesn't really initiate conversation. But a lot of times, if you ask a smart question and the person thinks like, oh, that's an interesting question, and then they take the time to answer it, they will then in turn want to ask you the question back. And then now you have the opportunity to answer it as well. So I do teach a whole section, and this is step 2 on the selling staircase, which again, my signature framework for sales is to create curiosity. And when I talk to business owners, one of the things I usually will ask them is, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your products or services? And most people get this like blank look on their face, like, what now? What do you mean create curiosity? But the fact of the matter is, if you're not able to create some curiosity, then you leave those networking meetings and you think, I don't even think anybody asked me what my business was, or I don't think I even talked about my business. So then I felt talked at the whole time, not talked with. Some of that is on the other person too, right? Like if you're showing up from networking, hopefully you're showing up from this place of it's not just about get, it's about give, right? There's give and take. Sometimes people forget or they get so excited that nobody else has asked them any questions. Finally, here's Laurie. She's asking me questions. So I get to finally talk. And then you go, but they never asked me a question back. Learning how to create curiosity can really help in those moments and peaking that. And sometimes, just to be like really forward, there is some phrasing, some things that you can say that will interrupt the pattern of the person who's just talking at you, just to see if it even makes sense for you to talk about your business a little bit.
Can you give us some examples of those?
Yeah. Well, one, just because I just said this last, and then I'm going to kind of back up a little bit. But if you feel like you're just being talked at and the other person's not asking you any questions, now what you do with your voice and what you do with your body language is going to impact how this question is received. So you need to soften your voice. You might want to soften your body language. So a way to soften your body language sometimes is just to tilt your head a little bit to the side and maybe even like change your stance. So instead of being like straight on with somebody, you might push a shoulder back just to give a little bit of like a change to the dynamic of the way you're standing. And you might say, now, would it be interesting for you to know anything about what I do? And then you wait and you see what they say. Now, if you say, would it be interesting for you to know anything about what I do? They might be like, no, thank you. How do I get out of this conversation? Right? That feels too harsh, too direct. But by softening your voice a little bit and saying, now, would you be interested in hearing a little bit about what I do? Most people are going to be like, oh yeah, sure. Tell me what you do. Because now it's like a pattern interrupter, right? It allows them to go, oh, I kind of just realized, and not in a shaming way, that I have been talking at Laurie this whole time and I need to let her talk too.
I love that. And it's funny as you were pointing, tilt your chin. I'm doing all the things.
You are.
I love this so much because what I've been learning is that sales is an invitation. It's kind of like you said, this you have this staircase because it's a process of I have this product that I love. I want to help you with it. Maybe you don't need it. But then what I'm finding right now is when people really need it, that's almost where I choke. It's like, oh, good. They said yes.
Oh,
And now I don't know what to, I mean, I do know
okay.
what to do, but I find
Yeah.
myself in that place. Do you
Yeah.
have that with your clients?
It's funny because things kind of come in waves. And the wave lately has been people like, okay, Nikki, I've got the person, they've expressed interest. And when I get to the consultation or the discovery call or the sales call, whatever you call it, I feel like I'm missing a step here. Just really quickly, I'm going to break down the reason I teach it as a selling staircase is because most people understand that you ascend a staircase one step at a time. You don't stand at the bottom of a staircase and hop up right to the top step. And you don't ask another person to do that either. You don't just say to somebody you're just meeting, like, hey, stand here from a standing position, hop up 5 steps, and let's exchange money. Most people would look at you like, hey, crazy lady, I don't think I'm going to do that. Right. And yet, a lot of times in sales, we either skip steps or we immediately go right in for the close, or we don't close at all because we feel uncomfortable. So, 5 steps of the selling staircase, really quickly, and then I'm going to really answer your question is step one is introduction. And the idea here is to make a powerful first impression. Step two is to create curiosity. I mentioned that a little bit. Happy to go deeper if you like. Step three is the discovery. And the objective of the discovery part of the conversation is to understand, do they have a need? Do I have a solution? And can I ask permission to issue that invitation to put an offer in front of them? Once you get that, you move to step four. That's actually where you're laying out your offer. I call that the proposal step. Step five is the close. It sounds like that means you exchange dollars for services, but that's actually not what I mean there. What I mean is that you issue that final invitation. And a lot of times people can get to step 3 or 4 in a sales conversation and they miss step 5. Now, your job as the seller is to earn the business. And your job is to guide the conversation. I think a lot of times, especially if we're nervous or we're not that comfortable with selling, we think, well, if they want to buy from me, they'll let me know. That's not true. I can tell you without a doubt that is not true. It's more not true than it ever is true. So even if you're like, but I have one example. All right, well, I have thousands where it's not true. So for every one example you can come, I have thousands where it isn't true. So your job is to make sure that you are issuing that close language. And the reason for that is because one of 5 things will happen when you issue close language. The person will say yes to hiring you. Great, you got a new client. Yay, that's awesome. The second thing that might happen is they'll have a question. Now, the thing about questions is if there is still a question in the mind of the buyer, it is hard for them to make that buying decision until they have that question answered. By issuing closed language, we give them the opportunity for that question to bubble to the surface so they can get it answered and then they can make a decision. So that's the second thing that can happen. The third thing is they might bring up an objection. Now, this can often be very scary to people who are not comfortable with sales. But again, this is a skill set that can be learned because an objection really is just an opportunity for you to check to see, can I overcome the objection? And if I'm able to overcome the objection, would they then want to buy? So it's learning how to address objections. And it's not as hard as people think it is. The fourth thing that can happen is they might say no. Okay, that's going to happen from time to time. Now, the great thing about people saying no is now you don't have to waste any time or energy trying to earn that person's business when they've given you the hard no. Great. Now we know we can part ways as friends and go about our business and go work with people who are ready to hire you. The fifth thing that will happen is, and this happens a lot, is people will say, I need time to think about it. Okay. Now, to each of these 5 things that I've given you when you issue closed language, there's kind of a next step for you, something for you to then do. So even if they want to think about it, even if they say yes, even if they voice an objection or have a question, or even if they say no, there is like one more thing that you can do in each of those situations. And it's learning how to do it. Sometimes people think like you're either good at sales or you're not, right? Like you're either born with a natural ability to sell or you're not. Well, that's not true because think of all the things you've learned how to do in your life. And maybe, like you're not an expert at certain things, you can get through them. Like I know that I did not come out of the womb knowing how to use a fork, but I'm pretty good with a fork and I can even use chopsticks now. But I had to learn that. Like Some people are way better at chopsticks than I am, but I can feed myself with chopsticks. Just like you can learn every skill as far as selling goes, you can learn it whether you think it comes natural to you or not.
This is so powerful because all of the things that you're saying, like I was just speaking with someone the other day and they said, "Yeah, oh, yeah, I've always wanted to have a podcast." And I said, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, what's stopping you?" "Oh, I don't have time. I just," and it was interesting because I let them go on about not having time. And when they were through, I said, "What if I had a way that you could do a podcast and maintain it easily within 30 minutes a week?" "Oh, I don't think that's possible." I said, "But what if it was?" And they were like, "Well, I would have been doing it." And so I was like, that was a different approach for me, but I wasn't approaching it as sales. It was a conversation with somebody. So I wasn't feeling like I had to sell anything. I was just like, but
Yeah.
wait, what if addressing that? And why is it so much easier when I'm not trying to sell something? The thing that you do is you just bring this ease to it. And it's almost like I want to call it something different than sales.
You can also refer to it as communication. Like I have a pretty extensive background in communication. I've dedicated a good majority of my adult life to learning how to be a better communicator. And when you have good communication skills, you don't get thrown in those situations. Like what you just did, the example that you gave, whether you know that you're doing this or not, it doesn't matter. But what you did was what's known as a conditional close question, which is such a brilliant opportunity. Like, what if this could happen? Would you then want to do it? And in their mind, it's like, well, that's not possible because if it was, I'd already be doing it. Okay, well, there's lots of things that at certain periods of time in our life we believe to be a certain way. But then something happens, whatever it is, and then we learn a new way, or we learn that what we thought was true actually is no longer true. And like the most simple example of this, right, is like some of us were raised that there's this man that shows up on December 24th late at night and leaves us presents. And we had such a belief as a child in this figure of Santa. Santa Claus is real. And you knew it with your whole heart and your whole being. And at some point, you started to maybe you started to suspect that maybe that wasn't exactly the case. And maybe it's still a really fun concept. And maybe you still even celebrate it and you get really excited about it. But you know now in where you are in your life that things are different and the experience of it is not what you knew it to be. And so just like what you did here with them about like, what if you could do this in 30 minutes or less a week and still have your podcast? They're in that very beginning phase of like, what belief system do I have right now that may actually not be 100% accurate? And so you're just starting to like plant that seed and open their mind. Now, back to your question is like, why can I do it over here and I don't do it in these other situations? And I would just say, Laurie, you can absolutely do it in these other situations. One of the things I would say is that when you were giving that example, it almost sounded like you were having some fun with it, right? Like it was almost like you were like, yeah, but what if? Like there was a little bit of a playfulness to it. And I would encourage you to bring that into all of your sales conversations. Let that side of Laurie, that playful side, that side who's like, yeah, but what if, come out, because it's super charming and it's it's very Laurie. It's you. Let that come out in all areas in your conversation. Keep that playfulness. The nerves start to come or the pressure starts to come. Remind yourself, like, I'm just Laurie. I'm just being me. And me has a playful side. And I can be playful even in sales conversations, even in the most serious, high stakes conversations, you can still be playful.
Well, that was my next question to you is when you work with ladies, and I think you work with groups, but do you work one-on-one too? Like, I feel like sales it's kind of the stair step thing, definitely. But when you were saying that, it's like, yeah, it's personal because we all do have different personalities.
Yeah. So I love working with clients one-on-one, and I have quite a few one-on-one clients. I have a group coaching program. It's called the Sales Maven Society, which is part of the light of my life and my business. I love it so much. And my private coaching clients are also super fulfilling because we get into the nuances, right, of their personality style. Because sometimes I'll give a suggestion to somebody and they'll be like, wow, Nikki, that's brilliant, right? And I can give the exact same suggestion to one of my other clients who's like, Nikki, I would never I would never say that. Okay, great. That's fun for me. I'm still playful and fun in my business too. And so I'm like, let's find a way to make it feel authentically you. Because again, I am not here to teach people how to be like me and talk like me because I already exist. There's already Nikki in the world. We don't need any more of this. Like there's plenty right here. But how you show up in the world and your style and your cadence and your way that you approach, whether it's a little playful or whether it's more direct or whether like whatever it is, introverted, extroverted, like we have to learn how to lean into the things that work for us. And this is one of the advantages of having a coach is because a lot of times you don't see your brilliance because you live your brilliance every day. You live and breathe it. To you, it feels like breathing. And for the coach, if you have a good coach who can recognize those things in you, they can help pull this out. So this is, I don't know if you know about the 4 levels of competency. The base level of competency is what's known as we are unconsciously incompetent. I can't tell you all my things because I don't even know what they all are. Some areas, and we all fall on different scale, like different levels of this competency, depending on what's going on. So unconsciously incompetent. And then at some point it moves up into what's called conscious incompetence. Like I know that there's tons of things I don't know, and I have awareness around that I don't know them. Like I don't think I could build a rocket. Maybe someone could teach me, but I wouldn't even know where to begin. Or I don't really understand how people know what like the proper texture of a dough is to get your proper rise on a sourdough. Like I know I don't know these things. I am consciously incompetent. Now the next level up is what's known as conscious competence. These are the things that you know how to do them. You might have to think about it, or maybe like just because I mentioned bread again, you might have to like read the recipe, but you know basically what goes into it and you can like get from start to finish. Those areas where you're consciously competent, okay, I can do it, but it's not like your superpower. Now, the 4th level is the unconscious competence. These are the things about you that as people get to know you are often like, wow, Laurie, how do you know to do that? Or gosh, how would you even know to say that? Or how do you grow those beautiful flowers? Or whatever, like whatever your thing is. And part of you kind of just wants to say to the other person, like, it's really easy. It's not really that big of a deal. That's because it lives in your unconscious competence. To you, it's like breathing. You don't recognize how good you are in a certain area. And because you don't recognize it, you also don't know that you have a structure behind how you're achieving your exceptional results. So this comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learn that there is a structure to excellence. And so I'm always looking for what is the structure of the things that make my clients very unique and special about them. And how can we pull that out and talk about it? So it's almost like, how can I bring it out of their unconscious competence and examine it for them in their conscious competence so they can now go like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But now by having some awareness around it, now I can translate it or I can transfer it to this other area. So I did this like just a little piece of this with you when you gave me your example of what you did in that one situation that felt easy to you, but in this other situation, it felt like, why didn't I do it? And so I was saying like, oh, I see this playful side of you. Like if you bring that into your conversations, that might make them easier. That's me pulling something out of your unconscious competence. Maybe you might not agree with me, making it aware, like bringing some awareness around it to you so that next time you go into your sales conversations, you might go in with a little bit more of a playful attitude and you won't be like, oh, I'm so glad Nikki taught me how to be playful. You'll be like, no, I'm just so glad I was myself because you're being you.
But it seems to me women have more of a problem with sales than men.
So I grew up and I made my sales chops really in like a very male dominated industry. The last 10 years of my sales career, when I was in corporate sales, there was only one period of time, and it was less than a year, that there was another female salesperson on the team with me. I was always the only female. So I worked in this very male-dominated industry. The majority of my clients were men. The majority of my coworkers were men. There is a different kind of aspect to it. And I will say that for a long time, I struggled with the like, I don't have that mentality. Like I am not a like go out and hunt the big game and, kill the elephant in the sales kind of realm of like, don't take no for an answer. That is so not my personality. But as soon as I started figuring out what were the things that I could bring to the table and how could I highlight those things, then, I became the top producing rep for one of the largest companies in the world in North America, it really was me selling like me, figuring out what were the things that worked, being strategic about it, having some structure to it, but what were also the things that felt natural to me. I do think women sometimes struggle. And one of the things I think as women, we're really good collaborators. And oftentimes, I don't think that most people think about or talk about sales as this collaboration. But you might remember at the beginning of the call with us is I said, sales isn't something you do to somebody, it's something you do with. With is collaboration. And so when you learn how to emphasize and be strategic about the way you collaborate with another person, it takes that pressure, that like, I got to go out and, close the deal kind of thing. And now it becomes like, I need to find out what's important to this person and find out if what I offer is useful to them. And then we can talk about the sale. And then it takes all that like that bro sales, bro marketing out of it.
So, Nikki, what was your interruption? What brought you to go from corporate to doing your own entrepreneur?
The truth is, in the space that I was selling technology. And in technology, one of the main kind of ways that you kind of get your products out and get awareness around them is you do a lot of trade shows. I used to do, like, I remember one year I did 100 trade shows in one year. That's a tremendous amount of time setting up a booth, standing in the booth, talking to people that walk by and then tearing the booth down. Like there's just so much into it. And I remember one morning I was in San Diego and we were setting up, it was a Saturday morning and we were setting up for yet another trade show, working a weekend. I remember as I was setting up, I looked up because we were in this big like gymnasium and I looked around the gymnasium as everybody was setting up their tables. And I realized that I knew a vendor in every single booth. Now, in some ways that can be satisfying because you're like, oh, I get to hang out with people who I already know. I thought to myself, for whatever reason that morning, it struck me and I was like, wait a minute. I was just about to turn 40 and I thought, am I going to be standing here 10 years from now when I turn 50 and I'll know everybody and everybody will know me? And I'm just talking about the same thing. That was like, it shook me to my core because I was making really good money. I was very well known in my industry. I had achieved a very high level of success. And I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I really don't think I can do it. I got curious about it. My partner, who's my husband now, and I was like, something's got to change. And he was like, then change something, do it. He was supportive. And so I quit my job. People thought I had lost my mind. I quit my job. I didn't have the idea of Sales Maven yet. I went to help somebody else start to build their business, and Sales Maven eventually came as a result of it. But it was me going like, I can't do this. I just can't do this anymore. I've been doing it for so long. There's got to be something more fulfilling out there for me.
Wow. I love how it keeps coming back to curiosity.
I am very curious by nature.
Yeah. So when you say I got curious, what happened? Did you start to think of things you could do, or were you thinking like of other jobs you could go work at?
I didn't know it. I didn't really know yet. I just knew that I couldn't do this anymore. Like it couldn't be this. So I did think, well, maybe I'll go into a different industry. I was on the audio video side, like in technology, I was selling audio video equipment. And for most of my career, I sold video equipment. And then the last couple years of my career, I was on the audio side. And so that fed that a little bit of that change because the video side and the audio side have some very difference. Now, they have a lot of the same clients. They have a lot of the same buyers. It wasn't quite a big enough shift. So I thought I've got to leave technology completely. So I thought maybe I'll do pharmaceutical sales or maybe I really didn't know, but I had been studying neurolinguistic programming. I had gotten my master's certification in it. And I was even at that point, I was assisting my NLP teacher on the weekends when I wasn't traveling, helping her teach her classes. I thought, well, I'm just going to help her build her business for a little while. And that was when I started hanging around women entrepreneurs, male dominated industry. I had never been to a networking meeting before where it was all women. And she sent me to a networking meeting where there was 100 women at this breakfast one morning in Seattle. And I was like, I looked around the room and I was like, and I'm not even being facetious, like, I didn't know that there could be 100 women in a room together. I'd never seen it before. It was just so shocking to me. Now, as I got to know some of these women, I was like so inspired by their passion, by their creativity, their drive to make an impact in the world. And as I got to know them even better, I realized that a lot of them were really struggling to make money in their business. And it was because they didn't understand the structure of a sales conversation. They just didn't feel comfortable selling themselves. Well, that was the thing I knew how to do. Like sales, I can do sales. I don't know about this entrepreneurship. I don't know about being around all these cool women, but I was always like, I just want to rub up against them. And like maybe some of their passion and their like coolness would rub off on me. So I just loved spending time with them. And I really just started helping some of them that I'd become friends with, just offering when they were open to it, offering suggestions about language and about strategy. And finally, one pulled me aside one day after a networking meeting and she was like, Nikki, why are you not teaching people these skills, like how to sell? And I said to her, well, that seems dumb because it's so easy. And I don't think people would pay me. She said, Nikki, I think people will pay you. And I was like, I don't think so. And she's like, just think about it. And at that point, I was actually going to go back and get a corporate job because I wasn't making any money helping my NLP teacher grow her business. I was up for a job. I was in the last, we were in the last interview, round. There were, I think they had narrowed it down to 2 or 3 candidates, and I was one of them. She said, if you don't get this job, would you just try to start a business? Now, here's my ego coming in. I was like, I'm definitely getting the job. Because, I'm so good at what I do. Like, I have a real confidence around what I do. And I was like, I'm definitely getting the job. So I said, sure, if I don't get the job, I'll start my own business. Well, it turns out I didn't get the job. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because Sales Maven was born. And here I am coming up on my 12th year in business, still getting to just rub up against these really cool, smart women.
What have been your biggest surprises since you've started doing this?
Well, one of the things I was surprised at is how much language makes a difference, the communication. I didn't really realize that that was a skill set that I had until people started saying like, how do you know to say it like that? Or how do you know that if you change this sentence in the way you write your message, that you increase your response rate? Like I didn't know that until clients started commenting on it. And then it was like, oh, again, here's something people will pay money to have somebody edit their messages and help them craft messages that are stronger, right? Like that was a big thing. Of course, I also didn't know, frankly, how much there was to learn about running a business, managing contractors and team members and things like that. I had managed sales teams before, but just wasn't the same. That has been a big, big surprise. And I really didn't know how rewarding it would be. Like, that's the other thing. I had no idea that I could love the work that I do and feel my own passion. Like when people used to say, follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life, which I always thought that has to be baloney because I must not have any passion because I don't even know what that means. It didn't make sense to me. But I have since discovered that I am very curious. Again, I didn't know that so much about myself. And I have a real passion for helping people make money in their business so they can make an impact in their lives. And that feels really satisfying. I feel like I'm doing the work that God sent me to do.
This is what I tell people when they say, oh, it's not about the money. I say, but what if it is? What if you could use what you love, whatever you're going to talk about if you're doing a podcast, and what if you made money and then you could use that money to support something that you really care about, some cause, something. And it seems kind of like, oh, I'll just give out of what I have. But what if we made enough money that we could give out of abundance?
I love that you said that. A coach said that to me a few years back. I was kind of going through a tough period and I was feeling a little disillusioned about this idea of, I just feel like sometimes in the market, there's this real pressure to scale your business, make the 7 figures. And if you're not making the 7 figures, like, what are you doing? Should you even be doing it? And I just said to this coach that I was working with at the time, I said, I just don't feel that burn. I don't feel that. Like that doesn't really seem very important to me. And she said, well, what is important to you? And one of the things that is really important to me is generosity. Like I want to be, and hope that I am, very generous with my time, but also generous with my money. We talked about that. And she was like, well, what if you set a goal for yourself? It's like how much you want to give away. And I knew instantly, as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, I have this big, it's still a big goal. I haven't hit it yet, but I have this big goal of how much I would like to give away because it's so satisfying. So when the example you just gave, I'm like, I'm so in on that of being able to make money so that I can continue to give from this place of real generosity and never from a place of lack.
Isn't that a beautiful thing? More women making more money, giving to more causes.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing this now, right, in our society. Some of the big names who have millions and billions of dollars, and these women that are out there giving from a very generous place. I am so inspired by that and the kind of change and the impact that they're making in the world. Oh, now I'm giving every month, and that is a big part of who I am. And it's really important to me, but I'm just so inspired by these women that have achieved such a high level of wealth and are just giving so generously.
A couple of things before we go. One is, how can people find you?
I'm going to wrap it around a gift around sales. Is that okay for your audience?
Absolutely.
I mentioned this briefly of like the importance of asking questions. And if you're doing any kind of sales consultation, sales calls, the questions that you ask can make or break that call. So I have a training I normally charge for. It's called Seal the Deal, the questions to close sales. And I'm going to gift it to your audience. If they want to gift it, all you have to do is go to yoursalesmaven.com/my gift. And that will give you access to that training for free. You don't have to, all you do is put your name and your email, and I'll send you access to the training. So that's first and foremost. And then we'll be connected. So that's a good way. And if you love to listen to podcasts, which I'm assuming you do because you're here listening to Laurie, I have my own podcast, which is Sales Maven. So you can check that out too.
And then you have books.
I do. I have 3 books. The first one I wrote it around my experience in NLP. It's called 6-Word Lessons on Influencing with Grace. So it's these little tiny lessons. It's part of a 6-word lesson series. I love this little book. It's a fast read. The second book I wrote is called Buying Signals. And that really just like digs deep into buying signals. If you've never heard what a buying signal is and you're in business, I encourage you to check that one out. And if you want a more comprehensive, like what is the strategy for a sales conversation, then the third book is called The Selling Staircase, which is my signature framework. And you can get them all on Amazon or really just about anywhere where books are sold. You can get access to them. There are audio versions for the last 2 if you're an audio book listener. In 2017, I started getting asked to guest on podcasts. And by 2019, people started saying to me over and over again, I binge you on podcasts. And I thought, how can you binge me on I don't even have a podcast. How can you binge me? And they're like, I just go into the Apple app and I search Nikki Rausch and I just listen to all these podcasts you've been on. And that was the indicator that, okay, if people want to binge me on a podcast, maybe I should put out my own podcast. So that's why I launched it at the beginning of 2020. I launched it actually in March of 2020, which is when the whole world shut down for the pandemic. I feel like my timing was good. It worked out for me.
I love it. I love it that you said yes and that you listened to people. They said, we want more.
Yeah. If people ask me for things, like if my clients will say like, why aren't you doing this, Nikki? Or I really wish you would do this, Nikki. I usually have a like 3 to 5 time rule. If I hear it 3 to 5 times, I'm going to go create it or do it or just say yes to it.
Okay. Before we go, this has been so wonderful. I've learned so much. What is it that you really, really want us to know?
What I really, really want you to know is you should never be afraid of inviting somebody to work with you. If you think you can help them and you know that what you offer might offer some kind of solution, even if they haven't expressed interest, instead of going in with a hard pitch, go in with this question. Is there ever an opportunity where I could offer you some kind of support or a resource around X, Y, and Z? And then wait. Don't justify it. Don't keep talking. Just see what they say because you just planted that first seed. And they may not say yes yet, but if you really can help them at some point, they're probably going to come back and you'll have an opportunity to earn their business.
I love that. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.